Hey everyone, Geoffrey here. Today I have Jason Ray again. So I think by the time this is published, a few months back, we've published an interview with just Jason Ray himself. Michelle, his wife, has volunteered to join us in an interview as well. So thank you, Michelle, for that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So last time it was all about Jason. This time, guys, we're gonna, hear more from Michelle's perspective. So for those of you who are not familiar with Jason's story, I would encourage you to check out the video down below for his first interview. But just to recap a little bit, so I think before Jason joined the program, they've been struggling in the relationship for a very long time. I think, Michelle, you're telling me earlier there was a lot of trauma in the relationship as well, where your mind actually redacted a lot of that stuff, where you pushed it away from your memory in a way. And you guys tried a lot of different therapists, a lot of different books and resources to try to fix it, to try to understand what's going on here. And if I understand too, at one point you actually filed a divorce proceedings in secret, and it kind of just gave Jason that.
Just got a lawyer, right?
No, I spoke with a lawyer.
You spoke with a lawyer.
Yeah, he's the one that documents.
Okay. So he got pretty close to divorce there, where you guys were both pretty much done because you tried everything already. So that was how things started. So if you want to kind of understand how things are like now and how the key learning lessons from Jason's point of view, I would encourage you to watch that interview. But I guess, Michelle, I want to start this with your side a bit. So let's transport ourselves back to, I guess, a decade ago, right? Because this whole thing started like a long time ago.
It did.
When do you think you started feeling that the relationship was a bit rocky on your side? And what were the signs that you saw?
It was immediately after the birth of our daughter, our first child. And Jason was not, I was expecting kind of a partner parent. And all of a sudden, Jason was just gone. He wouldn't hold the baby. He said he didn't know how to hold her. He didn't know how to talk to her. He just absented himself. And even though I was recovering postpartum, he was like, well, if you need me, just let me know. I'll be upstairs. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm laying here in the bed with the baby and I'm not supposed to get up. So how am I supposed to let you know? And he was just gone. So that was really, really hard. And that was the beginning of me realizing it was not what I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah. And did you, I'm sure you confronted him about this, right?
Many times.
And what was the response you got?
Mostly it was, well, I just don't know what to do. So I'm out of here, basically.
Okay.
And then it's a lot of travel. And so there were a lot of good reasons and excuses. But when he was home, he was just really not very present at all.
So I think the reasons were the typical ones, I'm guessing. And Jason, I'll let you speak in a bit. It's more like, I'm busy with work. I have no energy and my energy is drained. You're supposed to be the one taking care of this stuff. Why am I the one having to do this side of life and also this side of life as well? I guess, Jason, what were your excuses?
Yeah, good way to label them too, right? So yeah, obviously there were some small percentage of real life issues. Like I traveled a lot for work prior to the pandemic. About every other week, I was gone for several days every other week. So that's a challenge. My work is pretty intense sometimes, and I get calls at any time of the day or night. But that wasn't a big problem. I mean, the biggest problem for me, something I now understand from the work that I've been doing, is that I had a very intense fear of failure. And I also had a very intense set of history around not wanting to make mistakes. So being put in a position where I felt like I was going to be asked to do something very critical, where if I made a mistake, it was going to be a big problem. I didn't want to do that. My natural inclination was not to do that. And then there was, for a very long time, something Michelle and I have talked about a lot, that I had this mistaken perspective that our relationship was supposed to be a partnership, an equal partnership. And I was doing all of this work, and I was, working 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and I was doing all this other stuff. And therefore, the same number of minutes should have been invested by Michelle doing stuff that I was investing, because I didn't realize that emotional labor is not measured in minutes, right? And so I was at a point of saying, look, if you need me for something, I'm here. But I wasn't volunteering, and I wasn't being proactive in trying to find things that I could do, and I didn't want to take risks.
Yeah.
And you'll say emotional labor, but there is a lot of physical labor in raising children. So
Yeah.
we're breastfeeding. I was the one doing it. I was like, Jason doesn't have to wake up for anything. We're co-sleeping, so the baby's right next to me. And so I'm on 24/7, 365. And that's my perspective, is I'm working every goddamn minute, pardon my French. And, you know, just because I'm not getting paid doesn't mean it's not actual work.
Right.
I love that. And I want to dive deeper into that topic, because I think that's a topic, this whole distribution of labor, whether that's physical labor, emotional labor, whatever it is, distribution of labor, it becomes almost like a competition in a lot of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let me show you how I one-upped you. I did it better than you. So let's dive into that a little bit deeper. But you guys bring up something interesting, which is, I think when you were doing therapy, when you were reading a lot of books and trying to fix a relationship, you guys were trying to fix the relationship directly, basically. It's like, okay, we have a problem here. How do we learn communication skills? How do we learn all these skills, I guess, on the relationship to try to fix it? But people get often confused when we talk about our program and how we dive so much deeper into the layers beneath the skills, paradigm shifts, mindsets, identity shifting, internal stuff, internal processes. And we have a quote in a program that says, no one has relationship problems, but people have problems with the self that reflects in the relationship. And I think this is a classic case of that in action, where it's not that you guys didn't know what to do or what you should do. It's that your mindset didn't allow you to do what was right.
No, I think that's a very good point, because all of the therapy that we did, the first guy we went to, Charles, well, there were a couple of others, but Jason was like, well, she's female and you picked her, so you're just ganging up on me and that's not going to work. So I'm like, fine, you pick somebody. And we went to him and we were ganging up on him too. But what everybody was trying to do was fix the communication skills. Communication's fine. I understood exactly where Jason was coming from. I don't know that Jason understood where I was coming from, but we were not having trouble expressing ourselves. It was the perspectives, it was the paradigms, it was where we were at. The communication was fine. Where we were was not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's interesting, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, Jeff, and you've said something in the program, and we've talked before, there's also this feeling, especially men especially have this problem, where we want to say, well, if I just fix this, like, tell me what's wrong, I'll fix that thing, and then it'll be fine. So, you know, if I'm not home enough, I'll see if I can get home more, and then everything will be okay. Like they're not interested in exploring actually changing themselves, like actually growing. They just want to find the quick fix so they can move on.
Yeah. I think that has more to do with what you're trying to fix, right? Are you trying to fix the hard skills or soft skills? Fixing hard skills is easy. I think at work, men do this all the time. You look at a problem, you discuss the problem with your colleagues, and you can almost draw out the problem in a logical fashion on a board and say, okay, I can see the system. I can see this is the bottleneck. This is the issue. Boom. It's almost like a mathematical problem. You can see the proof of the mathematical problem, and you can say that's where your mistake is. But here we're talking about self-esteem issues. We're talking about deeply rooted subconscious things we believe in, we do. And sometimes, like we said in the previous interview, I can tell people, hey, you're falling for the victim mindset. And people will resist that. People can't even see it, right? I think it's the same thing where I think, Michelle, you're trying to tell Jason, hey, I think this is kind of a blind spot here. But I think, Michelle, your issue was sometimes with the blind spots in a relationship, you don't even know what they are. So you can't even express, this is the problem, Jason. And Jason doesn't know what the problems are as well. So it's just both people having the problems in a very subconscious level, not really understanding what the root problems are and fixing all the symptoms. But no matter how many symptoms you fix, it's almost like playing a whack-a-mole. It's like, would you fix one, another one comes up, and it keeps going,
Right.
right? And I think the root that we always say in the program is always like the lack of safety. And what's interesting that you mentioned was, so if you look at your case back then, you said, I tried to confront Jason about this, but nothing really happened. I was just met with a lot of denial, a lot of justifications, a lot of excuses,
A lot of anger.
a lot of anger
Actually,
sometimes,
yeah.
right? And Jason, I think when you responded in this way, you felt like it was appropriate and proper for you to respond in that way because of your paradigms. But would it be safe to say for me, Michelle, that him being not present was not what caused you to get out or want to get out? I think it's the fact that not only was it the problem, this layer problem, which is, yes, Jason is not present, but I don't even feel okay to even bring it up, to keep confronting him about this. Because either I'm not going to be listened to, I'm going to be gaslit.
It was definitely not safe. I would be gaslit. When I would get close to something that actually was accurate, he would feel attacked, and he threatened to divorce me several times. It just as a fear tactic to get me to just stop. And he would say anything in very violent tones with body language, very, very intimidating. Jason would never hit me. I understand that. But he would do everything short of that. He would hit surfaces. He never punched walls because his hands are important, right? But you got to type this. He's a computer guy. But he would slap surfaces. He's 6'4". He would loom over me. He would shout very loudly. He would make accusations that I was attacking him. Victim mindset, basically. But his response was, it was like he was experiencing an existential threat, and he was really fighting for his life at that point.
Yeah,
that's how strong his response was.
And what's interesting is when I talk to a lot of the wives of my clients, they kind of say similar things, which is, hey, you have the problem, but then the problem on top of the problem is that I can't even talk about it. And that's what makes me feel very, very hopeless. Because if there was an alternate reality where we have the same problems, but now I can actually communicate with Jason about it, Jason can listen, we can resolve it, we can understand each other, that problem doesn't really become a problem anymore. It's like, oh, we can resolve it, right?
I mean, I did keep talking about it, regardless of whether it was safe or not.
You tried force that square peg in a round hole in a way,
because I needed it to change. It wasn't for me, because I've been married before, and he was abusive emotionally as well. But I had an emotionally abusive mother with whom I am no longer close, if I ever was. So that's kind of a thing that it gets around my blind spots, and I don't realize it's happening. And then you get gaslit, and you get all these other things. But there was a baby, and I will be damned if I'm going to sit for this for my baby. And so I fought, and I fought, and I fought, and I fought. Whereas if there hadn't been a child, I don't think a lot of the stuff would have come up. But I would have just taken it.
Yeah. And what's interesting too, Jason, is I think when you were destroying that safety, I don't think you were aware you were destroying that safety. I think again, a lot of the stuff that you're doing came out of your blind spot. And I think you thought you did what was right, but it just wasn't. It was just that instance of being wrongfully certain as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was oblivious to a lot of things. And there were some very fundamental things at the base. When we talk about paradigms and mindsets, some of the basic ways in which you process the information will cause you to make a mistake, right? So I was not only culturally raised, in an environment where men and the marriage is a particular kind of relationship, and people are supposed to be in a certain way. But that it was one of the big errors. I mentioned the emotional labor is not measured in minutes. And another big error was that if you're really a partnership and you're really married to each other, then you should be accepting of whatever problems the other person has. And so when I would identify that I had a problem, like, I get really mad when somebody thwarts me, that meant it was okay for me to get mad when people thwarted me. Like I had made the statement, that's something that happens with me. And then I didn't have to do anything about it because that was just the way it was, which of course is completely wrong.
Yeah. And we'll talk about why that's wrong in a bit. But I want to kind of fast forward a bit. So obviously that was the moment when you first realized there's a problem. And then Michelle, I commend you for trying for so long. And like, because a lot of people would just be, let me just try to confront. Oh, that doesn't work. I met with a lot of like abuse. Let me just settle for less. Let me just learn how to deal with this or get out of the relationship much sooner than you did, I think. So obviously you tried a lot of things. What was the point that made you pick up the phone, call your lawyer and go, I think I'm done?
That's a really good question. I mean, I remember when it was, but I think, so I met a lot of other moms in preschool, and a lot of us were having the same kinds of issues. And we became very close. We're still, I mean, Lilu, our daughter, is 14. And I met these people when she was like 2 and 3. And we have formed a support network. And there's like 5 or 6 core people with a few other people that come in and out. But we all, we're all still very close, and we maintain contact, and we have since, without, even with me moving and different kinds of stuff, we've always made time. And actually the house we just bought is right in the middle of everybody. So now I'm like 6 minutes away from everybody, which is awesome. I think finally, there were a couple of things. Finally, a lot of the things that they were saying to me and the advice I was giving them, I realized I would need to take for myself. But I think it was that the emotional damage to the kids was becoming intolerable. And it would be better for them not to have a father than for them to have this father.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of the dimension I think a lot of people fail to think about. When people think about fixing the relationship, they always think about just like fixing you and your partner. But your relationship leaves a legacy, right? It affects so many people around you. So just something to think about, guys, right? But let's fast forward to now then. So
actually, sorry,
go ahead. Yeah.
Just so that you can understand. So before I talked to a lawyer, Jason had been saying for years, maybe this is just not going to work out, as a threat, right? To make me, because I don't have a job. I have not been in the workforce for 15 years now. 16, because I hurt my back. Yeah. And so, and this is new information for Jason. So at the point that I was thinking, this is really maybe just not going to work out, I knew that if I presented it as my idea, he was going to go ballistic and attack me. So what I said was, I think you are right. This is not going to work out, which put it back on him. But he went ballistic. So the house, there is no soundproofing in the house at all.
In the house we were in.
In the house we were in, and any house except for the current one. So the children have always heard all of our fights. They've always heard all of it. And Jason just completely lost his mind and threatened to kill himself, loudly yelling and screaming. I'm sure woke the children up. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not, you don't, no.
This confirms my decision.
What you're going to do, and if this is how you're going to react, then you get the fuck out, because I'm not having this. I won't. But I had to talk him down again with the emotional labor to the point where it would be safe and where he wouldn't actually go in the bedroom and blow his brains out. And then I arranged for a mutual friend of ours to take the guns, because we do have guns. He could have done it.
Well, I wouldn't, but yeah.
Well,
but Michelle, I think you were scared because, like,
at that point, I was like, I don't know what he's going to do. He might.
Because
I don't
it's talking
know.
to like an irrational person. It's like, okay, this is beyond, like the boundaries have been destroyed now. It's no more lines in the sand. I don't know how far he might take this, right?
Right. Let's forget it. I'm out. I'm done. So that was then fine. I'm talking to a lawyer. I'm getting this done. We're going to have this in advance. And if I need it, I have it and I'm out.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think a lot of people listening to this can resonate with that because, the thing about not having safety is just like you said, right? You didn't even feel safe telling Jason that you wanted to get out or you wanted to like end things or you had some serious issues and you were on the brink of something bad here because there's no safety. So Jason, you were left in this position where you were in a blind spot for a long time where you didn't know how bad things were until you find out with the bomb dropping. When the bomb drops, it comes as a shock to you. It's panicked. Once you panic, you start to act out in all the same previous ways that caused the downfall in the first place.
Right.
But the funny part is that when the bomb drops, that's been a long time coming. You just never saw it because you never had safety. And that's the hardest thing with safety is like you never find out, which is why people get blindsided all the time, But I want to go on a lighter note.
Sure.
I mean, contrast it now. I mean, nothing's ever going to be perfect. I still have issues with my partner. It's part of relationships, right? Again, the problem is never the issues. Is that do you have the process to actually remedy it, to discuss it, to look forward to a better future in a way, right? How are things like now?
Things are much better. They're much better. I mean, I just dropped a bomb on Jason by explaining how I phrased that and why. And that was new information to Jason. And I feel perfectly safe saying something like that. Mm. So I'm not concerned about safety anymore. I am still dealing with CPTSD and
I think it's personal baggage, personal trauma because of the
yes. Yeah. But there's no more building onto it.
Yeah. 1 second, let me just take some notes because you said some very golden things I want to address too. And I heard you guys bought your forever house. How was the process of buying that house? I'm guessing you're renovating it as well.
No, it's almost perfect.
Oh, well, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done, but none of it is like mandatory. Like it's all enhancements.
Yeah. Because like that process of buying a house, because we're building a house right now, that's a challenging process for a lot of couples because that's where I think a lot of your differences in vision, in philosophies, in taste preferences, not only those differences, but the way you handle those differences will really come out usually. And it's been...
Yeah, that's one of the things though that right from the beginning, when we first met on eHarmony, as I'm imagining he told you, we always kind of had the same vision for the kind of house we wanted. And I do a lot of craft working. I need a big crafting space. Jason likes to do woodworking, which he hadn't been doing, which he should because it's good for his heart and his soul. And so what has happened over the years, despite all of this stuff, is when things are going right, it seems like the universe is aligning to help it go right. Mm-hmm. So pretty much immediately when I really began to understand that Jason had really made this paradigm shift, when he finally understood what I had been saying, yes, even though I'm not romantically interested anymore, I don't want to break the family up. I would like to stay together as a family unit and be, let's redefine the marriage. What is the whole purpose here? Is it just about sex? Because at this point, that's completely off the table for me and has been 4 years since shortly after our second child was born. Yeah. I mean, just no. And so when Jason finally understood that, yeah, apart from that, I am wanting to continue to stay together as a family. And I had been saying it many times, even in therapy with our therapist. But Jason finally heard that. And he finally asked me, he said, well, would you be, willing to leave? Yes, what have I been saying all this time?
Yeah.
You're saying my words back to me, but now you heard it from a man, so now it's okay. Which is a little bit of a blind state. I mean, that still happens. He can't help it, but he's working.
Yeah, I would nuance that a little bit differently.
Sure.
So one of the model, actually, I don't think we ever talked about this.
Oh,
So
yeah.
one of the models of how to look at love relationships is a triangle, and it's got 3 parts. And one part is the support, the commitment to assist. And one part is the intimacy, the emotional intimacy, to be able to share who you really are and to be able to really feel safe to have that level of interaction. And one part is the passion, which is the romantic component. And there are relationships along that triangle in multiple combinations, right? So what I wanted and what we had been talking about early on in this process, but just before I joined the program, was not an option. Is I didn't feel like we could stay together as a family or as a partnership if we had no emotional intimacy at all. Like if it's just I'm a roommate, then I can't do that. Like that's not going to
Right, because there's one way to have a marriage, and that's it.
Well, no.
Well, I want to talk about, let's table that, because like, I want to talk about that because that triangle philosophy I've heard. I know people's philosophies on like sex. And I think, let's table that for now, because like, I think that could be a very, very interesting discussion. But I want to kind of look at your perspective, Michelle, on between how things were back then and now, where you guys are obviously working like a team very, very well together. When you saw that Jason enrolled in this program and started to see some of the initial changes, perhaps, what were your thoughts? What were your feelings about it?
Well, first, it was getting him out of my hair. So that was great. And he was doing a lot of reflection, which was also great. But the changes were not immediate. But I began to see a lot of, he stopped being so reactive. He became a lot safer to speak with. He stopped talking over me as much. He stopped interrupting me. He actually seemed to be listening and hearing me, and he would ask for clarification. He would stop things and go, wait, okay, I need to understand this thing. I'm hearing it this way. Is this what you mean? Right. So it became safer to actually talk to him about stuff. I would still talk about it, but I would expect blowback. So, I was doing it in the face of a storm, and now he'll listen to me. And when he starts feeling triggered, he'll just stop and back off and be like, okay, I'm having this experience. Why am I reacting this way? As opposed to just going, okay, you're making me feel threatened, and so I have to attack you to make you stop, which is what it had been.
Yeah. We call that in our program, Michelle, just in case Jason says this word, the seat of consciousness. Observe what you're feeling first and become really good at observing. And it's a skill that you build, is observing, the skills of observing.
Practice. You got to practice. You really got to practice. This has come up a couple of times. I mean, how long have you been doing it, the program?
Since February.
Okay, it's not been very long, and I expect this. This is like a dietary change, right? It's a lifestyle change. It's not a quick fix. It's not here, meet these milestones, you're done. It's like life, right? You're constantly growing, you're evolving, but you have to practice. It's the practice, right? So every once in a while, and just a few days ago, Jason will start to backslide, and he'll start to become very impatient, and he will be very stressed out. Which, now that our emotional boundaries with me and the kids, because I had been keeping us very separate emotionally so that they wouldn't be affected. So Jason's stress affects us very deeply. And now that we're open, it's a danger when he gets really stressed out. The kids start acting out. I start freaking out. It's like, okay, fine. Well, if I'm going to keep my emotions open, then you need to be safe. And if you're not safe, then I'm going to shut down. And that's not what we're trying to do. So I started doing things like, have you been taking the time to do your program? And he's like, oh. And this time I was like, you have not been doing your program, have you? Well, I didn't have time. And I'm like, I don't care what else I've asked you to do. I don't care what else you've committed to. We need to put a roof over the patio so the cat doesn't get wet. I mean, it's raining, whatever. I don't care. It's like eating and bathing and breathing. You do these things and you do the program, because if you cannot keep yourself stable, if you are not taking care of yourself and doing your work, then none of the rest of it matters.
Yeah.
Because it won't benefit me or the kids or a relationship or anything. You can sit there and feel like you're doing so much effort and putting stuff into it and still be ruining things because you're not taking care of yourself. You're not doing the thing that helps you be your best person, your best self.
I love that. Yeah. And it's the same thing for me too. And Jason, I think I told you this last time. It's like the last 2 months have been kind of crazy for me as well in terms of work and schedule. But that's the time when I actually double down on my own processes, because that's when I need to be on all the time. And I think the question that I would like you to ask yourself, Jason, is like, because sometimes like as a busy professional, we always give ourselves excuses of time and not enough energy. But the excuse is always saying like, well, doing the program is hard. But I can guarantee you, dealing with the consequences of not doing it, all the crisis that you have to, all the fires you have to put out, all the emotional baggage you have to deal with.
Sure.
That's even harder. So one hard is like now, the other hard is like you have to face it later. Which hard do you want? One hard leads somewhere, the other hard doesn't lead anywhere. Which one do you choose, I guess?
Right.
But I also want to ask this question on, because a lot of the people who join my program, Michelle, they have this problem with urgency. Of course, the bomb drops, right? Their partner is on the brink of divorce and they say, give me something quick, give me something right now.
There's no quick fix. There's just not.
Because like, from your perspective, I can imagine you've probably heard every possible iteration of words, creative phrases, promises, everything that you could possibly hear. And I don't buy any of that anymore, right? But why were you willing to wait? Like, what made you wait?
I could begin to see, well, first I stayed because I had no income and I had nowhere to go. I was trapped, which is part of the financial abuse that also occurred in a relationship. There was nowhere I could go. There were people I could go and stay with. I did have a couple of different offers. Be like, you know what, we'll just take you and the kids in. Don't even worry about it. Just get the hell out of there. But when I got past the feeling like I couldn't leave, when Jason started doing the program, I began to be able to see the person that I had met and the person I thought that I was getting to know and the person I thought that I was marrying, the person I thought he was, when I decided that he was somebody I wanted to do life with. And so when I began to see that, I was like, well, okay, we'll see what happens. I'll do everything I can to protect the kids. And, Jason, you take your time to go do the thing. I married you for a reason.
Right.
But it wasn't because of anything that he did. It was my tolerances and my goals and what I want from my life is why.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So let me put it this way and see if it makes sense to you, Michelle. Because like we always tell people, I think there's 3 factors you have to look at, right? So when people feel the urgency to take shortcuts, say manipulative things, what they're thinking is that their partner wants to see them become a perfect product. And they're trying to do very well to prove that I am already perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they do that by saying like, by rejecting all these problems that you think I have, I don't have it. Let me show you why. And let me show you why the future will be better because I'm already the person who can take you there. I can take us there, right? But you were never looking for Jason to become a perfect product because you know that's impossible. That's BS. What you're looking for is, Jason, do you have a process to get there? Are you on the right trajectory here? That's it. right? And once you see that she was on the right trajectory, that's when you went, let me watch a bit. And so becoming the perfect product is impossible and it takes forever, it takes a whole life. So if you're looking for that, there's no shortcut around that. But you can start to show people the perfect process pretty quickly, right? And
Yeah,
and that's the part where we say, like, if you are trying to fall for this urgency illusion, think about that. Think about the fact that, like, you need to start the journey. You just need to start the journey, and people just need to see that you are starting the journey,
right.
and they will see that.
So there are a lot of things that he has spoken about that have come out of the program that I've been saying for years. And one of the things that I used to try to talk to him about, because I was coaching him, I helped him with his business relationships. I helped him with a lot of stuff. He's a very linear analytical thinker, but I'm a very gestaltic creative thinker. And so I would be like, oh, that guy's not your friend. Do not put your faith in him. Was that right?
Wrong vibes, bad vibes.
But there's a lot. There's a lot of different things that go into it. And I'm really intuitive. So there's a lot of things where I was like, look, who you are is not the problem. The problem is all of the detritus that has built up on top of you all these years, your trauma responses, your ideas of who you needed to be rather than who you truly are, all the stuff that's been accreting on top of you for your whole life. And you're 63, so that's 62. 85, I don't know. But it's taken you this long to build up that accretion. This is not a thing that you can just chip off. You have to take it off layer by layer. And I've been in therapy in one form or another. I'm 53 since 26. And so I'm aware that it's a process. So what I need to see is that you're doing it. I'm not expecting huge results. What I need to see is the commitment to the process, because who knows how long it's going to take to actually get to who he is inside, who is the person I saw when I first met him, underneath all the stuff.
Yeah. And that was the same thing for my partner too. She said the exact same thing. It's just like, I just need to see some progress. And so people who are stuck in this thought of like, oh, I need to do something now. You don't need to become perfect now. What you think you need to do now is not what you need to do. What you need to do is you just start and find the right process, learn the right process, and get the right process and do the right process.
Right. First, stop hurting me.
Stop the hemorrhage. We have that section. So like our program is like, stop the hemorrhage
and
build.
Show me process.
Right.
Show me some progress of some sort. So when he stopped hurting me, that was like, okay, it could work. Let's see what happens.
So I wanted the first kind of a big takeaway to be about this concept of sex a bit, right? So let me start off with what I think is the big problem with a lot of philosophies around sex and relationships. So I think a lot of people think about sex as an outcome thing, meaning good relationships, they have sex 3 times a week, right? Good relationships need to have sex, need to have passionate sex. If that sex goes away, then we're in trouble, right? Like they're defined, the health of your relationship almost like is defined by how many times and how passionate that sex is. So what happens is when you go to a sex therapist, when you go to a counselor, you will hear that you need to meet this goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so now sex becomes a business item.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Regardless of how you feel, I don't care how you feel, how tired you are, what stage of life you're going through, we need to have sex 3 times a week, because if not, then we're not good here, right? We have to. So that makes sex like a chore. And that creates a very downward cycle where I don't want to have sex anymore.
Much worse than that for the
Go ahead.
woman. I mean, generally speaking, the man is like, well, okay, we'll just have sex, right? And that'll fix everything. And that was my first husband. And it was after he basically raped me and then was like, well, we had sex, so now everything's fine. And I left the next morning because that's not it's not okay. But if you don't want to, if it's not an enthusiastic yes, then you're just participating in your own rape. And that is literally what it feels like. And if you think that's going to help your relationship, you're very wrong.
Right.
Very wrong. And I had many people telling me, oh, well, you should make sure you just have sex more.
Right. But
And I'm like,
I would if I had the desire, but because like for you, right? I think for females, sex is a very different experience than males, like you said. For males, I see stimulation, I get stimulation, I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. But for you, it's an act of surrender in a way, right?
yes.
And for you to be able to surrender, you need that safety. Like
Absolutely.
if you don't have safety and you have all these baggage, you have all these issues, you have all these like pent up things, baggage that you hold, and you're supposed to just like lay bare everything, surrender everything, and just like surrender yourself to this dude who's the source of the lack of safety, you can't open up. Like it's just physiologically, hormonally not possible because you have like, it's hormonally not possible.
No,
right?
It's not possible.
And so the problem is like when people think about sex as hitting a number, hitting a goal, you create this environment where sex becomes like a chore. When sex becomes like a chore, you destroy that safety. When you destroy the safety, you actually make it harder for sex to happen. And what's worse is that if you don't have that safety, you probably can't talk about this problem. And so you're creating like unlimited problems, basically. Mm-hmm. And this is why sex eventually dies in a relationship, or becomes, the cycle just keeps going. So the thing that I think about when I think about sex now is like, I treat it like play, right? So when my partner, for example, ends her work, I end my work. The first thing we do is we help each other get out of work mode, right? We say like, let's get ourselves ready to play. And when we get ourselves ready to play, that means creating safety, creating all these ingredients for each other. The play comes naturally. Mm-hmm. Like you can't force yourself to play. Mm-mm. You just play. It's like the more you try to sleep, the less you can sleep.
Right.
The more you try to have sex, the less you can have sex. Right. And this is the exact same thing. So you have to create the right ingredients for play, for surrender to play, then you play. Right. And what I mean by sex as play too is like sex doesn't always mean climaxing.
No, it doesn't always mean penetration either. It
doesn't mean penetration. There's a lot of ways of play. It's just play. It's just enjoying play, right? There's no rules to it. There's no like, here's what you need to do, the step-by-step thing. That's it. Mm-hmm. And so instead of trying to hit a goal, try to identify what the ingredients are of surrender and a play. Help the other person get there. Help each other get there. And you'll find that the other person will want to play. Mm-hmm. If the person cannot play, then that means that some of the ingredients are missing, then help that. But don't ever say to the person, why are you not playing?
Right.
Why can't you play? Just play. I don't get it.
And one of the things that you know we talk about in the program, and one of the things that is a key paradigm shift to make is, again, the things that you are doing have to come out of the things that you are being, not the other way around. Like you have to just be the right person. You have to be the best version of yourself. You've got to be someone who can create safety. You've got it has to be a natural outcome, mm-hmm. not a planned one, mm-hmm. right? And so the same thing with the relationship, it will improve to wherever it improves to, and it will be whatever it is because of the way it is. Like we're just going to be the best people we can be, and then we'll do whatever it is that seems to be the right thing at that moment, whatever that is. Like putting a label on it or having a checkbox you have to check to say this relationship is successful because we have hit all the checkboxes. That is the mistake, is having the checklist.
Uh-huh. I think it's important too, especially for the men in your program around this issue. Just because you've made your paradigm shift, just because you've stopped the hemorrhaging and you're doing your work and you're making progress, doesn't mean it's fixed at all for your partner. So the way I described it to Jason a few times is like, okay, great, you're not stabbing me anymore. And you've pulled the knife halfway out. But that doesn't mean I don't still have wounds everywhere. It doesn't mean I'm not still bleeding out. just because you stopped doing it doesn't mean it's over for me. So and I think your ideas about play and sex are probably really applicable to most relationships. Ours is hopefully not TMI. It's very different. The birth of our second child was extraordinarily traumatic. The pregnancy was not quite right. His head was stuck under my sacrum from the beginning of the third trimester. So the birth was extraordinarily horrible.
Yeah.
It would, because he wouldn't move. He wasn't moving, and I had wanted to have a natural birth. And Jason wasn't in the room when I finally said, take me to the hospital. I need a cesarean because he's not coming out. He's not going to come out. And the only way it could have been worse for me is if, and I've used this very descriptive, is if they had like saran wrapped my legs together and hung me from my feet. Then that would have been worse. At first, I thought I was going to die. And then I was afraid I wouldn't die. It was the worst thing ever. And there's a difference between labor and pushing, right? Pushing is when you're in the process of actually trying to get the baby out. You're not preparing to get the baby out. You're trying to get the baby out. And I pushed for almost 12 hours, which is vastly longer than anybody should ever have let it go. Ever. So I sweated myself out. We tried acupuncture. They tried hypnotherapy, which we hadn't practiced. In the birthing pool, on the toilet where it's relaxing, on the bed, on the ball, all these different things. And I'm screaming the whole time. I sweated myself out, like literally, there were no tears. There was no liquid coming out of my body. They had to put me on an IV. They had to catheterize me because everything had been crushed shut. And it was really bad. Finally, somehow my body managed to get his head out of where it was. And so he was coming through, but both kids had a shoulder dystocia, which means their shoulder gets stuck. My pelvic arch is apparently flattened a little bit. So their shoulder gets hooked up on that. So he's born out to like here, right? The top of his head is sticking out, and it was going fine, but then we lost his heartbeat. So they had to like reach in and help get him out, and he's blue and he's dead.
Yeah.
And so we had to resuscitate him. And Jason froze, of course, because it was really traumatic for him. He thought I was going to die. He thought the baby was going to die. He'd been trying to deal with our daughter, who was 2. And I've been screaming this whole time, and I'm not that person. And there was nothing that Jason could do to help me, right? He was totally helpless. He was trying to do what he thought I wanted to do. And here the baby's dead. And the midwife put the baby down and he said, Jason, talk to your baby, bring him back, talk to your boy, while she's trying to resuscitate him. And Jason froze. Because of course he did. And my thought at that time was, well, now the pain is done, but now I've got all this stuff. Yeah. Like, oh, okay, now I have to do this part as well.
And then now you realize your ability to provide that sexual experience is kind of...
Well, so he was resuscitated. He's non-binary, so they're 12 now. But right after everything was done and everything was okay, and there were other traumas that happened. The placenta broke and the cord ruptured. And it was a bunch of stuff, and there was blood everywhere. The midwives were freaking out. They thought I should have passed out long before that, but apparently that's just not a thing I do. And I said to Jason, I cannot ever be pregnant again. And we had done IVF because we really wanted kids, or I really wanted kids. And I said, I can never do this again. If I ever get pregnant again, I'm going to kill myself. So you need to have a vasectomy. I cannot do this again. I will not do this again. And Jason said, well, yes, of course. But then he didn't do it. It took 2 years for him to do it. And so I also had postpartum depression from our older child. So I'd had postpartum all this time, and it just got worse and worse and worse until, with the abuse and everything else, it became like actual depression. And one of my friends was like, it sounds like you have depression, you have postpartum depression. I'm like, I'm not sad though. Like, well, no, it manifests with anger and rage too. And I used to fantasize about Jason's plane crashing. I used to fantasize that, we had a winding mountain road that when I was driving that I might, wouldn't it be terrible if I just went off a cliff? Oh no, but my kids were always with me. So that was never going to happen. But that's the state of mind I was in. Meanwhile, trying to have a life at home with the kids and Jason and everything. It was good that you were gone so much, because it would have been really bad. And he wouldn't have the vasectomy. And so I knew he didn't care if I died, because that's what that meant. He wanted to have sex, refused to have a vasectomy, knew that I was going to kill myself if I ever got pregnant again. So what does that tell me?
Yeah, there's like a lot of, seems like we said, like sex for you is an act of surrender. And I think for you, there's been so much that has happened.
For me,
makes it so impossible for you to just surrender.
Yes.
So Jason, I think you know what to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously some of those things look a little different from my perspective.
But like, I think the premise doesn't change, which is like, if you want that sex to naturally, organically, and the passion to organically, naturally come back, then you need to start looking at the ingredients of that. And you're not there in the program yet, so it's fine.
And again, it's the progress will be made as it gets made.
The first thing,
and the things that will happen,
right?
Whatever they are.
Like,
it doesn't matter whether they happen or not. Like that's not the point.
That's the key for us, for our relationship to continue to build as a friendship, as a marriage, however we're defining it, which at this point is a platonic partnership. That has to be understood as completely off the table. That's not a goal. That's not a thing we're working toward. If somehow I ever get through all of that trauma and things are safe enough and the ingredients are all there, then, it's possible. It's not completely impossible, but from my point of view, at this point, it is really not likely. It's really not likely, because there's just too much built up. And there was physical damage too that I just deal with because I gave birth.
And I get it, but I think, one thing for you guys to think about, and I want to move on to the next point because I don't want to belabor it too much, is we'll get there when we get there.
Exactly.
It's like, just continue to create the ingredients, because if I asked you, Michelle, can you imagine your communication, your emotional connectedness being how they're like today? If I asked you that 10 years ago, would you say this is possible?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
We've already done the impossible.
Right.
So what I'm saying is like, just continue the process.
Well, yes.
And later on, just see for yourself.
Right. Well, you'll see what happens.
See what happens. That's all. Right.
For my particular feelings of safety, that has to be like, look, I know we're not going for that. That's not.
And we talk about in the program a lot, right? That one of the big paradigm errors is being outcome focused.
Outcome focused.
Like, don't focus on the outcome. Like, that's not the point. The point is focus on the process, do the stuff, be the best person you can be, create the safety you need to create, like do all that stuff.
And I think
there's a famous story. I'll interject just for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Frank Perdue. I don't know if you know who Frank Perdue is. Frank Perdue founded Perdue Chicken Farms. He founded in the 50th year. They said there was no room in the chicken business for more chicken farms. And he took over the East Coast, and they own the East Coast. And he used to say to every employee that came on board, he said, I'm going to give you a copy of the business plan. And he handed them a business card. And one side of the business card said, take care of your customers. And the other side of the business card said, take care of your people. And he said, and if you do that, then all that other stuff, market share, profit, like that'll happen. Like you don't do that. Like you do this,
right?
And then the rest happens.
So Jason continues to make progress. Jason does the work that he's doing. I do my own work. And eventually there's a possibility that he'll become the person that I saw, that I was interested in sexually when we met. Eventually I might be able to heal back to that point. And if that happens, then yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah, but I think if I could read your mind a bit, what's interesting is the reason why I think you want to assert here that we need to accept the possibility that that will not happen is because you're subtly saying, stop pressuring.
Exactly.
Stop pressuring. Stop
I'm
adding.
not pressuring you
He's
anymore.
not. Yeah.
Like I'm willing to see what's next, but don't pressure. Don't.
Right.
I don't want to keep thinking I will disappoint you. Right.
Oh no, I'm not worried about this.
or like I don't want you. I don't want to keep thinking that what's the future is going to be below your expectations. I don't want you to keep hoping for this, knowing like, and I can't promise you that right now. Right. Right.
Well, and if a person is focused on the outcome, then part of their mind is measuring their progress toward the outcome. And if they're not making enough progress, it causes stress and anxiety. So it's having the outcome is the problem, right? Because that's what makes you focus. So by taking it off the table, that is to make it clear that that's not something that you can measure progress against, nor is it anything that you can have as a success criteria, right? For our relationship to be successful. That's not a component that has to be there.
And we talk about this, we call this untethering in our program. And we say to people basically like the reason why this happens is, and just to give you a look into the program, right? When you desire something, consciously desire something, I want this much sex, I want this quality of sex, I want this in my relationship, etc. You are instantly subconsciously saying, I do not have that. So that creates this chasm that creates anxiety, right? Now, the problem is that if you are looking at an outcome, let's say you're saying right now, for example, I want to have more sex. That's your outcome that you want. That outcome it's not always in your control. Whether you get that outcome or not, it's not always in your control. So you get this chasm that creates the anxiety, and the anxiety has nowhere to be channeled. The anxiety is like, okay, I feel anxious about me wanting the outcome and me possibly not getting the outcome. That's when you lay asleep at night and you just go, you worry. That's how worry forms. But what we're saying is, so our human brain wants to create this chasm. We want things. As humans, we want things. So what if we can channel the want to, I want to do the process, which you will say subconsciously, I don't have the process. But whether you can learn and do the process or not is in your control. So now you have the same chasm that creates the same anxiety, but then the anxiety has a place to be channeled, which
it becomes motivation.
It can motivation.
Right.
And just for people to understand just how wired they are to think about the outcome. If I ask you, how was your day today? I swear, everyone would say it was good or bad because of certain outcomes. Tell me about your future. What do you look forward to? Well, I look forward to this outcome, that outcome, that outcome. I'm trying to avoid that outcome, that outcome. But when has people ever said, I had a great day or bad day because I did this process? Because I'm looking forward to doing this today, this process today? Never. And that's how wired we are.
Well, and in fact, I posted in the group a process win about this thing that happened over the weekend where I got very stressed and impatient because of this project that wasn't going through, where the win was I have the tools now to manage that. Like I was able to deal with it. And so that is a big win for me, right? Because not having the tools was stressful.
Yeah, precisely. And I want to talk more about this, dealing with the personal trauma that you have, Michelle, because this resonates with me deeply because I was a very toxic dude back then. And I created a lot of trauma with my partner. And it's not just me who created the trauma. It was also like her parents, her life before she met me as well, just her personal experiences. And, I think the problem going along with this topic of being too outcome oriented, being too goal oriented is I think a lot of people ask the wrong question. And the question they ask is, give me the roadmap to healing your personal trauma. That's not how this works.
No.
right? Because like I can ask my partner every single day, 3 times a day, hey Sam, do you still have any personal trauma in your in a relationship? First of all, she might know there's something there. There has to be something there because she doesn't feel like completely open, but she doesn't know how to put it into words.
No.
So she just says like, I don't know, right? So if you try to fix that trauma, you can never fix it.
No, you'll add to it.
Yeah.
Exactly, but it happens organically, right? Like for example, like I'll start with this one point and then I'll kind of leave it to you guys. We were driving one day, and I made this joke, and she got offended by that. She totally took it the wrong way. It's like, whoa! I was shocked. I was like, whoa! How did it get there? And I realized a lot of people during that moment would say, "Oh, take a joke, man. Get over it." But for me, I was like, whoa! This is a massive opportunity. Because I've been asking her for so long, what is the trauma that you have about this relationship? And right there, when she misunderstands me, she just told me what her trauma is. Right? She just told me some bad paradigms, some bad thinking, some bad memories that caused her to misinterpret my joke in her way, to take it the wrong way, and to feel all the weird things. So then my next question was, oh, that offended you. I guess tell me more about that. And then she revealed so many things that she's been keeping inside herself, deep inside herself. And once she expressed that, she felt understood on that. I understood that. And she can see some changes. That's how we heal that trauma eventually, right? It's those organic moments. And for you to be able to respond well in those organic moments, you have to be. You cannot plan that. You cannot script that. You just have to be, you just have to react in a proper way, right? So let me pause there.
And that goes back to just do your work.
Yeah.
Do
your work. You gotta be.
You're not responsible for my stuff. You're responsible for your stuff. You do your stuff. And that's all you got to worry about, because everything else will come organically. Right.
Exactly.
And because he always wants to do stuff for me. I'm like, can I do for you? I'm like, you just do your work. Just do your stuff and go away. Just stop asking me what your assignment is. Just go do your thing.
I don't do that much anymore.
Not much, no. But
give us some credit, will you?
yeah. No, there's been a massive change.
Good.
But I was going to say, if you ask your partner 3 times a day, is there something wrong with our relationship? The answer will be there is now.
Yes.
The other thing I want to talk about too is about this, what grinds my gears these days is how quickly people label character, right? So for example, Jason, you gaslit Michelle a lot. And Michelle, I'm sure in Jason's eyes, you did a lot of things that would be considered narcissistic, toxic, whatever it is, right? Like I'm sure. But Jason, you did a lot of things. You did a lot of things to gaslight, stonewall. A lot of people would call you a narcissist. Are you a narcissist?
I hope not. Like, I don't think so.
This actually is a thing that comes up.
We've talked about this a lot.
Because we have a lot of there are a lot of other husbands in my friend group who
are not doing the work.
They're exhibiting the same tendencies, right? So the other reason that I chose to stay is because while Jason was exhibiting narcissistic behaviors, I didn't think he actually was a narcissist. I thought that he had bad training. He's dealing with the toxic masculinity and all of the expectations because of the way he was raised, and and the way he looks at things, his paradigm had him stuck in that. But I don't believe he's actually a narcissist, because I've been married to a narcissist and it's different. And because some of my friends whose husbands are doing the same thing, actually one of them is a narcissist, and there is definitely a difference. In another case, another one of my friends who ended up divorced, she's the narcissist. And I told her that. And at one point, when things were going bad for her, she said, "Oh my God, I'm the Jason in this relationship." That was
Yeah, I'm guessing.
right. And I'm like, you really are. So what are you going to do to change it? Yeah. Because you've seen my point of view. Now, that's That's David's point of view. But she is a narcissist, so she couldn't change it, and they're divorced.
And again, we talk about this in the program too, right? Is that we spend a lot of time interacting with other people,
Labeling.
but what they see and what they interpret from what they see is based on what they are experiencing. It's not based on our internal motivation. Like, we're bad at expressing it. We're bad at responding well. So there is a question. I mean, a real narcissist does the same kind of behavior, gaslights people intentionally. Like, that's a thing that they do because it's what they want to do. What I was doing, I didn't want to do that. That wasn't my intention, but that's what I was doing, right? My intentions were different, but it doesn't matter because my intentions don't get perceived because of all the things that have happened up to that point. So, again, it's the being able to, when somebody reacts in a way that suggests that they interpreted something differently than you wanted to, that's the time to say, oh, that's fascinating. Like, what's going on here? It's different, as opposed to what I used to do, which is, you're wrong. Like, you just interpreted that wrong. So you should interpret it right, which of course is not a good way to express that.
And I think I understand the difficulty for a lot of people though, because like the difficulty, it's like type 1 or type 2 errors, right? It's sure, the odds of my partner being a narcissist is very low. But the worst error I can make here is I stay with that person thinking that they're not a narcissist. Well, they actually are. And I live a miserable life. That's the worry. That's the error that's like really can kill your life, right? But what people need to think about too is, I think 3 things. 1, let's understand how narcissism is diagnosed. It's not diagnosed as a causational method. It's not like a hormone, a thing that we can look at and go, oh, if they have that gene or that thing, they're not narcissist. It's a correlational thing. So they basically look at like, okay, here's all the traits of a narcissist. If you display more of these traits, then higher likelihood that you're going to be a narcissist, right? But that's like going to Dr. Google, WebMD, and going like, oh, I have all these symptoms. Oh my God, I have cancer. You don't have cancer, bro, right? You just went to WebMD. The second thing also is it's really hard to understand people's intentions from their actions. So when people look at this list of, like you said, Jason, that list of narcissistic behavior, those are all actions. But the intentions behind that changes everything. I can give $1 million to charity out of altruism. I can give $1 million to charity because I get some PR benefit. That changes that action completely.
Yep.
Right? So even if you look at those lists, you can't even tell if someone is narcissist or not. So then the question goes like, well, how do I protect myself then? How do I know? Well, I think before I go there, right? The other thing too is you have to also understand the danger of making the other error, which is if, let's say, Michelle, you labeled Jason as a narcissist prematurely. Think about the downward cycle that creates, because it doesn't make Jason want to change. He's basically saying like, oh, you're a narcissist. You're born this way. There's something you can do to change it. You're just an asshole. You're born to be an asshole. There's nothing you can do to change it. Well, then why would he change? It's not very encouraging. It's not very motivating. It's very demeaning, in fact. Right? And it's almost like how a lot of people, I'm sure you met these people before. They go to the doctor. They feel sad. They go to the doctor says, you're depressed, take these pills. You have depression. You have chronic depression. Well, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because now they tell themselves they're depressed and they make themselves more depressed. And when people tell them like, dude, you're not depressed, you're just situationally depressed, maybe, they say, no, the doctor told me so. I labeled myself already. People labeled me already. It just doesn't create change, right? But I think for people, the best advice I can give on this one is just understand how rare narcissism is, true narcissism is, right? And that's really on you to decide, right? Meaning, if you're confident that your current process in the way you talk to that person, the way you handle the conversations is good, is proper, but that person does not see or have any intention of ever changing or ever bettering himself, whatever it is, that's a major, major red flag. Because I think the difference for you, Jason, was you were doing all these narcissistic things, but I think deep down, I think, Michelle, you can see it too, that the intention to change was there. The guilt was there.
Let me
Tell me more about that.
Clarify that.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's there now, right?
It's there now.
It wasn't there
But
before.
here's what happens. So you're absolutely right. So people exhibit some behavior. Someone else interprets that behavior and labels it. Say you're a narcissist. If you're not, you get a defensive reaction. Like, no, I'm not. Like, that's not true. What you just told me about myself is false. So I don't have to change anything because what you just told me about myself is false. So that means you're wrong and I don't have to do anything. Instead of, again, something we learned with the program work is if that's the way that you're being perceived, if you've just done something that someone else labels that way, you just did something, okay? It got labeled that way. First, you have to take a quick look internally yourself. Say, was that something that I was intending to do? And secondly, and much more importantly, is get an understanding from their perspective. Okay, what did I just do and how did that feel to you and how did it land? Because if you respond to the labels defensively, you're just confirming what the other person has labeled you as opposed to saying, oh, okay, I just did something that was hurtful. That happened. Whether I intended it or not, whether I wanted it or not, I did. So I'll accept responsibility for the fact that I did. Now let's unpack it. Like, why did it feel that way? What was the process? And I think that's a key point because early on, I was reacting much defensively, just saying, no, that's not true. I'm not doing that.
And
I would never lie to you.
Right.
I would just tell you things that aren't true.
Right. From this side of it,
right.
It really doesn't matter because if he's doing something that's a narcissistic behavior, and because I have children, I have always taught this, so it's not who you are, it's what you've done, right? This is a behavior. That's not your character, it's a behavior. So I say, well, he's exhibiting narcissistic behaviors, but I never said he's a narcissist because I don't really think he's a narcissist.
I love that.
If you say to a narcissist, that was a narcissistic behavior, they'll respond the exact same way, whether they're a narcissist or they're not. They'll say, no, it's not. And, you can't tell from this side whether they're being defensive because they are or they aren't. Because
but I think the interesting point you brought up is like, this is a nice philosophical discussion, right? Because so for the guy, it's very clear, right? For the guy, like, because usually the guys are the ones being labeled as narcissists in most cases. I wouldn't say it's all cases, but most cases. And so if you're the guy, if you don't want to be seen as a narcissist, then you better stop acting like one, which is when people point out your problems, actually pause and see, do I have that? Don't be like most guys and just start to like justify and pin.
Did I do that?
Right.
That's not what I meant. So I didn't do it.
Right, exactly.
I did do it, but I was a mistake. I'm really sorry. Let's look at it.
Yeah. So be careful of that. Now, for the other side, on the person like who thinks they're dealing with a narcissist, I think you brought up something interesting, which is that I don't really care if they are narcissists or not. It doesn't bother. It doesn't make a difference to me, right? If you're a non-narcissist doing things that hurts me versus you're a narcissist doing things that hurts me, you are hurting me, period. Like, it doesn't really matter. So it's really, what we're saying is it's really up to you to decide whether is it something you want to take or no. But there's no point ever, no excuse to ever label someone as a narcissist. That's not needed. It's not necessary.
Well, and the reason we label things is because we like to predict. We like to have models. Like if you believe someone is greedy, then you expect that every time they're presented with an opportunity to get something, they're going to take it, right? Because that's what you expect from them.
Yeah.
So I saw something that's very good. Everyone has to recognize that yourself is a different person to every person you interact with. They have a picture of who you are in their head.
Mm.
And it's not the same for any two people. It's not the same as what's in your head. So you can't try to address the things you do that are hurtful by denying the fact that you're hurting people. Like you have to accept the fact that whatever you just did was hurtful, take responsibility for it, and then say, okay, first, I don't want to hurt people. So what do I do to not do that again? And second of all, if what I did was perceived as hurtful, then that means there's something in that other person that is being triggered that I just did. And I triggered them, and it would be nice to unpack it so that A, I can avoid it. B, they can see whether or not that makes sense.
That's beautifully put. And there's a comedian, I don't know. There was this thing like it's funny when people say like, dude, you're being an asshole. And then the guy is like, no, I'm not. Well, like, that's not for you to decide.
Right.
That's for the other person to decide. That's not for you to decide.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can't just say you're not and then say, oh, I guess you're not, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I guess that was okay what you did then.
yeah, exactly. Okay, two more things. Equal partnership, which is like the chores thing that we're talking about. This is fascinating because I used to do this too. I used to so my partner, for example, she would volunteer, hey, I want to do the dishes, something like that. And then I would either try to like compete with her on how well I'm doing the dishes.
Oh, that would be nice.
Right.
I do the dishes now.
Or the other one is like, I would try to figure out like, well, if we have different roles, whose role is more valuable?
Yeah.
Or whose role is like more serious, right?
Which is an error in thinking.
Right. Like you just washed dishes. I worked all day or whatever it is, I used to take care of the kids. I did this, man. That's got to stop.
I'm trying to measure that as a competitive stat to say I did more work or you did less work. That is a problem in and of itself, right? So
I can put some numbers on that. So, emotional labor. How much do you pay a therapist to help you deal with your issues and your problems, right? The wives tend to be doing that all the time. We're managing your emotions. We're managing the environment. So there's the emotional labor. Okay, what do you pay a therapist for that? There's that. If you have kids, what do you pay for a surrogate, right? How much do you pay somebody to have a baby for you? How much medical stuff goes into it? How much do you pay the person herself, right? If you have a nanny, how much do you pay her?
Mm-hmm.
If you, all these things do have monetary, and if you're a full-time mom, then the first 8 hours is at full-time, right? The second 8 hours is at time and a half. And the third 8 hours is at double or triple time,
right.
because it's a night shift, right? It's graveyard shift.
Right,
and then it starts over again, right? So we are talking about $400,000 or $500,000 a year, which is more than he makes. So if we want to talk about that, you pay me.
Right.
The model that I have, sorry, I'm kind of short on time, so I want to.
Yeah.
So the model that I have that really worked for me, and you guys might want to try this, is necessity versus sufficiency, right? So first, my partner always have a talk, and we say like, "What's our goal? What do we want to accomplish here?" Right? And let's break down the things we need to do, even the smallest things, and let's cut it down to what's necessary. Like, what do we need to do? So, for example, like we're building a house right now, for example, right? And I'm trying to also grow the business, systematize it, etc. Hers is pretty much on a much more mature level than mine. So we're saying, okay, well, right now I cannot really take care of the house. So why don't you do that? That's a necessity, because you doing that helps me with mine as well, right? So we understand, we define necessity as what is necessary for both of us to get to that goal, and what is necessary for you to help me and for me to help you. What is necessary there?
Yeah.
Once we define that, the life becomes a lot easier, because when couples fight about chores, they're usually not fighting about the necessity of it. They're fighting about the sufficiency of it, meaning that they're fighting about like, oh, you didn't do it as well as I hoped, whatever it is, right? They're really fighting about that part. It's the scale, the quality of it, the subjective quality of it. Now, what happens though is that the argument around the quality, the sufficiency of it becomes conflated with the necessity of it. For example, Jason, you're trying to say to Michelle, hey, Michelle, I did all this work, right? Why do I need to do extra? You're trying to say, I've done my quality work to this level. I thought I was sufficient, but you're saying it's not sufficient. But then in that conversation, you misunderstand that. Each other misunderstand it as like, oh, your role is not important. It's not necessary. No. So let's establish the necessity.
Yep.
And then let's make sure that all future discussions, we both understand that it's about sufficiency here and it's subjective.
And if you've established safety, and if you understand what is really necessary, then the real answer is it's not a question of balancing or making sure each person's doing half. It's if something needs to be done and I have the time and energy to do it, and my partner doesn't, I should do it. And if I don't have the time and energy to do it, I should tell my partner, hey, this is going on and today I can't do this. And if both of us can't, then we have to talk about it. But you can't talk about it if you don't have safety. But if you do, then you can say, okay, well, she's exhausted, I'm exhausted. Okay, the dishes just aren't going to get done today, and that's okay. Great.
It's okay. Exactly. I love that model. And it's almost like it's changed the way I see business and even everything, right? Because like I used to work in corporate, and I used to like rank people. Oh, his job is more important than that job. But then when you are a business owner, you have to realize that even the smallest thing is super important. Even my admin person. Without my admin person, I'm broke. I'm gone. Right? Everything is necessary.
Right? It's Goldrat. It's the theory of constraints. It's the most important part is the weakest part. Where's the bottleneck? That's what needs to support. That's what's most important at that time. And it's completely fluid, right? So you have to be looking at the whole system. You say, okay, all the parts are important and vital.
Right.
Where do we put the effort to help make sure the weakest ones are always being lifted up so that it keeps going?
Exactly. So everyone's kind of like, yes, you have different roles, but everyone is necessary. Everyone's necessary. How can we all just work together to get to the same goal? And it just become a much more interdependent relationship. Like it's a very different model. And I think we can go like hours on this topic alone because like phase 5, Jason, is about this, by the way.
Right.
Now, last thing.
As you say, it's not me versus you. It's us versus the problem.
The problem. Right. Exactly. And it's like, I better myself for you, you better yourself for me towards the same goal. That's totally cool. Last one is like the unconditional love delusion thing where you said, Jason, well, don't change me. Right. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to get over. I think sometimes it's, to be honest, you do need to change yourself for other people. Like it's okay for you to say like, I'm going to change myself. You need to change yourself. That's okay to do that. The quote we have is like, true power and freedom is not about being who you are and not being who you're not. Because a lot of people, I think when they think about true power and freedom, the perfect relationship, they're thinking, I want a relationship that I can be who I am. And I can avoid, like, I want someone who can appreciate me for who I am with my flaws, with my good sides, with everything. Just, I want that person to appreciate me as who I am. And so they keep themselves in a tiny bubble where they're enslaving themselves in life to only be like going in one direction. I only like these kinds of dates. I only like these kinds of relationships. I only like these kinds of movies, these kinds of conversations. That's how relationships get stale. You're slaving yourself there. But what we say is true power and freedom is about being able to become whoever you want to be, to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Right.
So think about this like an actor almost, right? Like imagine you're playing a video game. You know, sometimes video games have like that, you would love this analogy because you're a video game designer. Video game has like the skills wheel, right? And the skills wheel, like if the skills wheel is like very broad, then if you need to do a mission that requires you to do more like strength, you can do that. If you need a mission to require you to do more charisma, you can do that. I think a lot of men struggle with that because like they have all this like very masculine energy, but they've rejected a lot of their feminine. So at work, they're great. They feel so comfortable, masculine energy. But then when they come home, they cannot switch because that archetype is not even accessible to you, you know?
Right. Well, and you do want your partner to understand and work with you, even though you're flawed, because everyone is flawed. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you should say, and therefore I don't need to improve my flaws. Right?
No, ideally, you help each other to grow. That's why we have relationships. Any relationship is to help each other to grow. You have friends who you want to help and they help you. And it's a reciprocal, interdependent relationship. It's not codependent. It's not dependent. It's interdependent, right? You're helping each other be better. You're helping each other see where you can grow. You're going to help somebody see like, oh, well, you could use some help with this thing. I am terrible at organization. I have friends who come help me. She just broke her Achilles tendon, but so it's going to be a little bit, but I really am having trouble getting like the pantry unpacked and organized. There's just too much stuff because we have too much stuff. That's a different topic. But she is very organizational and very motivational, right? So she comes over and we get so much work done, but I help her with other stuff, right? So you fill in the gaps. Jason talks about this all the time. And despite all of our problems, we are an excellent team because I'm really, really creative and gestaltic. And I just understand things. And Jason's very analytical. So there is very little that together we can't figure out when we're working together. Yeah.
And I love that model because like it's almost like a symphony for me. I'm a bass player, you're a violinist, very different instruments, but together we can make something good. But if I only go like, oh no, drums suck, only violin is great. Then you have a very crappy orchestra with just violins. Right?
Or like the movie Ratatouille, right?
Right. Yeah.
Combine things. You got cheese and you got fruit. Exactly. Put them together. It's amazing.
Right. And so like when I think this whole goes back to perspective though, or like the perspective in which you're looking at things. So a lot of people, when they say, I don't want to change myself, it's really as a self-protective mechanism, right? It's like, you're telling me to change. I don't want to change. But then they are very open to saying, but you need to change in these ways. So like when it comes to me, I don't want to change, but you change, right? And that's more of a victim mindset thing than anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but if you can think about it, not as change, but as growth.
It's growth, exactly.
It's growth. It's not change. You're not altering who you are. You're growing.
But even here, right? Like the concept of change is so taboo.
Right.
Michelle, you felt the need to caveat yourself. Well, don't call it change, call it growth. Because
no, it's just the way I look at it. Because change is good. Change is important, right? Without change, everything is static and it's entropy and we all die. Right? That's not good for anybody.
Right.
But people look at change and they're afraid. It's like, oh, it's going to be a bad thing for me. But change and growth are the same thing. But people view growth. You think of the word growth and you think about plants. You think of things getting bigger and better and more beautiful. And they're just different words for the same thing.
I would go further on that one, right? So I agree, growth is definitely part of change. And that's something people sometimes don't want to do. But I think change, like pure change, is also necessary. Because for you, for example, right? You go through a lot of different stages in life, where each stage you go through on a macro level requires to value different things, have very different philosophies, have very different priorities, have very different personalities even. Mm-hmm. So if you are stuck in your personality, in your preferences, then yeah, you might be great in the honeymoon period when you're single, when you're just dating. But what if you have kids suddenly? Suddenly you break up? Like that doesn't make sense. So in a macro sense, right? Like I see my life has changed a lot. And I think this is a mindset thing where, are you hypothetic? Are you trying to get the world to change towards you? Or are you trying to be antithetic and going like, let me try to understand it from other people's perspective. And let me see the value on the other side. I never used to be a family person, right? But my partner was. And instead of going like, well, let me tell you why I don't like family. It's, Sam, I never liked family, but let me learn from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then I realized, what I thought was right at first wasn't right anymore. Now I change. Right.
the partner on the other side of the process. One of the things that I've talked to Jason about, because he doesn't tell me all of everything, but he does, share some stuff. And every once in a while, he'll say something, and I'm like, well, okay, that's true for men.
Exactly.
That is not at all true for women. So you talk about, feeling like you're going to like, no, I'm going to be this way, and this is how I am. But for the most part, women do not have that experience. We automatically have to consider our entire environment. We automatically have to adapt ourselves to what's going on, who's dominant, who's a threat, who's not a threat.
I agree.
You have to be hyper vigilant.
Like you can't just go to a gas station by yourself.
No,
and just be
it's
like,
a natural state of being female in this world, in this culture right now. And I am an extremely
assertive.
Right? People don't generally mess with me, but I've always had to consider what's the other person's perspective. What do they think about it? What are they going to do about it? How are they going to see this? And adapt myself to the environment and the situation. And I look at it as facets. I have millions of facets. Am I different with everybody? I'm totally different with a lot of people, because that's who I am with them. Yeah. That's what our relationship is. And even that, depending on the circumstances, that's going to alter and shift. But there are very, very few women who have the luxury of being able to say, you know what, this is my worldview, and that's just too bad.
So I think I do agree with that. I think like I learned the value of non-rigidity from Samantha, because I think she had to be less rigid than I do.
Can't survive.
Can't survive if you're rigid.
You can't.
But I think also what's interesting is like, so not only do you need to be non-rigid, fluid in a macro sense, but also in a micro sense, because like even throughout the day, right? Like you are at work, you need to have a different personality than when you're at home. You got to change that. Mm-hmm. And so I think the problem, and I will end on this point, is the problem that people have when I say, for example, like, no, be fluid, become whoever you want to become, change your character, change your personality. People say, but that's not genuine. That's not who I am. Sure. Then who am I then?
You can be.
But like,
if you accept yourself.
But like the analogy I give to that is like, okay, so let's say you are a very rigid person. You only like a certain type of, let's say, movie. And your partner tells you, hey, come on, let's watch a chick flick with me, man. And you, with your rigid self, from who you are, you watch that movie and you hate every moment of it. Now, take that instance versus you're someone fluid. You legitimately allow yourself to like whatever you want to like. You see the value in so many things. So your partner goes, hey, come see a movie with me. And you go, yeah. And you go there and you enjoy it. What is more genuine? The first person who goes to the movie, never enjoys it, just says it out of obligation, or the person who goes to the movie and actually enjoys it, laughs at it. Which is more genuine? So it's a question of like, what is genuineness? Is genuineness rigidity to you, or is genuineness being in the moment, being present, etc.?
And there's nothing wrong with going and enjoying the movie and then saying, that kind of movie is not my thing. Like, that's not my favorite movie. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, the point is, if you are someone who's super rigid, speaking as someone who used to be super rigid, okay, you're going to be alone a lot, because finding another person who has exactly the same set of rigidities as you is very difficult.
Yeah, it's like also like life becomes so one-dimensional, Like I remember I used to be so rigid too. And like I used to judge so many things, right? It's like I have my preferences. Oh, this music is good. This music is bad. This movie is good. This movie is bad. Everything has opinions, has value judgments on it. And so what happens, right? Eventually, my partner says like, my partner used to be a very creative person. It's like, hey, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. Eventually, she stops recommending it. So every week, our date is the same. We go to the same restaurants, do the same things, talk about the same things, because we're so rigid. Right? That's why relationship gets stale. But what if, you can be a person who, no matter what movie you go to, no matter what comedy you see, no matter what music you listen to, no matter what you do, you just legitimately enjoy yourself. You're like, I appreciate this. I get it. That's to me like so much more enriching life. You're not like blocking out so much of life. Life is giving you so many gifts. You're like, forget all these things. I'm going to take this one.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I got to go to some coaching calls right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
But that was fun. Jason, one last question for you. When you were applying for the program, did you remember getting turned off by like the application process and how difficult it was, how long it was, how... Do you remember that?
That didn't bother me at all. The only thing that bothered me about the entry process was it felt a little sales, like there was the timeshare kind of limited time, limited this, limited that. Now, I didn't care, but I did it anyway. And honestly, now that I've gone through it and I've seen people who've gone through it and I've gone through some of the program, it may not be rigid enough. Like I think you do a very good job of getting people through to understand that if people are going to commit to changing and to growing and to learning, they have to be able to commit. And if they're not in a position of being able to make that commitment, they're not going to get success and they're just going to piss everyone off. So
the way I deal with it now, and I tell my team to do this, is like, when you get people who are turned off by the sales thing, don't explain, just ask them some questions. And these are the questions that we ask, right? Mr. Prospect, why does your partner not trust you? When you say you're going to change, things are going to be better, why doesn't she trust you? Oh, you're saying that she doesn't trust you because you've been all words, no action. All talk, no walk. Great. So right here, you're telling me this is important to you. You want to do this right now.
Except.
But then when it comes to like the actual putting your money where your mouth is, you can't do it. So you're doing the exact same thing here. And we, as a coach, we need to understand like who is there to talk the talk, or who is there to walk the walk. If you are here to talk the talk, I don't want to take your money. But if you're here to walk the walk, then let's do it. But if you are here to just talk the talk, you're going to get offended by this, and you're going to like turn yourself off anyway. Right? It's okay. I'm okay with that. That's the only thing we kind of say.
Yeah. Well, as a partner on the other side of this, I mean, I'd like to tell all the other men who are participating, do the work. Just do the work. It's not going to be fast. No, but if you do it, you're going to see changes and results. And whether that works for her or not, you're going to be a better person. Mm-hmm. And that's your goal, right? To be a better person. Just do it. Just do the work. Know that it's going to take time.
Jeff says this all the time in exactly those words.
Just do the work. Just do the work.
Just do the work. You'll be the best person you can be. You'll be the best version of yourself. You will have the relationships that you should have with the people that you should be with, and things will be great.
Right.
And maybe that's the person you're with now, and maybe it's not, but that's not the point.
Also, trust the process. You're not going to see results right away. You're not going to be able to recognize them in yourself right away. Trust the process. As the partner, I'm telling you, just trust it, do it, because this guy was a real asshole. And he's let that part of himself go.
Good.
And I'm still here. So.
Good. All right, guys. So we'll end on that note. If you guys want to explore more about the program, learn more about it, we do have a masterclass. I'm going to put the link down below this video. It's about an hour and a half long. So be sure to dedicate enough time for that. At the end of the masterclass, if you want to submit your application for the program, we can do so. We give you very clear instructions on how to do that. But yeah, looking forward to seeing your applications. Thank you both for joining me. That was so insightful. So I had so much fun. I wish I don't have this coaching call right after me, but I do.
Anytime.
Anytime. Have fun.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.